this is Arizona's ideal path to the Final Four. For me.
Go for it.
Akron, Oregon, Baylor/Mississippi State, Wisconsin in the Elite Eight. Mapping out the road to the Final Four for the Arizona Wildcats, I am Damon Fairall. I have Kevin Thomas next to me. We are in Studio K, presented by our friends over at Circle K. Make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Kevin, that so elusive Final Four Arizona fans have been looking for since 2001. We talked about it earlier on our Selection Sunday show. I got my national championship hat on, feeling the good vibes, and we're starting off with a first-round matchup against the Akron Zips, 13 seed. Arizona's a 4 seed. Game going to be played in Seattle in that first round into the second round, and we'll get into what that could mean later, Kevin. But how do you feel about this first-round matchup against Akron, and I guess just kind of temperature check as an Arizona fan?
I feel good, Damon. I feel confident. This is a team that Arizona should beat pretty handily if they are truly the contender that we think that they are. Akron, they do have some strengths, right? One of those strengths is they are a fast-paced team. Damon Dog, if you look at over here, Akron, 28-6 record, 17-1 in conference, incredibly dominant this year in the MAC. 113.7 offensive rating, good for 66th. The defensive rating leaves a little bit to be desired, but still almost in that top half of the nation. Now, their tempo is where they really impress. 16th fastest team in the nation, 71.4 in the tempo rating. And then their strength of schedule being in the MAC is going to be pretty low there, 277. So overall, Damon, this is a team that Arizona should beat and beat decisively. There should be no fear at any point in this game for any Arizona fan sitting at home, and that's kind of how I see it.
Yeah, Kevin, I will caution everybody at home. Last 21 games for Akron, they have 20 Ws. Yeah. They are 20-1 in their last 21. And you know, that is since the start of conference play there in the MAC through the end of conference play. So, you know, they're only playing conference opponents there, and that one loss coming to Ohio by a 17-point margin on the road. But they weren't great in non-conference play. I'll say that to the people at home. Losing to Arkansas State in OT, first game of the season. Then they lose by 19 points to St. Mary's in Game 3. St. Mary's obviously had a great season, won the West Coast Conference this year, beat Gonzaga twice to do so, but you know, not a very close game in that one, Kevin. And then lost to Milwaukee by 19 as well. Lost to Yale, who I know me and you were both pretty pumped about, you know, not having as our 13 seed in the bracket. And this is why, Kevin, because Yale, also a 13 seed, beats this you know, Akron team by 16 points. And that was at a neutral site game. And then Princeton also beat Akron by 1. So, you know, they were 7-5 coming out of non-conference, reeled off 20 wins out of 21 in their, you know, conference slate, and now gear up to play Arizona. So, just as an Arizona fan, outside looking in, you know, I think this is a team that Arizona should handle. Spread opened at 13.5. I think Arizona, you know, if they're a serious team, they cover that spread, Kevin.
Totally 1,000% with you on that, Damon. I want to throw a little bit of stats at you. You know I love to do that. Number 4 seeds have won 78.8% of the meetings against number 13 seeds all time in the NCAA tournament, but at least one 13 seed has beaten a number 4 seed in 28 out of 39 tournaments. Arizona, you had better not be a part of that statistic. You had better be part of the 78.8% that gets it done against the number 13 seeds, because this is a weaker number 13 seed. An Akron W would be the first time they've ever won a tournament game in school history. And you don't want to be that. You don't want to be that if you're Arizona. There's no reason you should be that if you are Arizona as well, Damon. So after Arizona advances past Akron, who they got on tap?
Yeah, next up, it's going to be the winner of Oregon versus Liberty, the 5-12 matchup, also in Seattle, Kevin. And I think that's where this Seattle aspect of things comes into play. Oregon, Pacific Northwest, Seattle, biggest city in the Pacific Northwest. If Arizona was to face Oregon in that second round, as the, you know, higher seedings would suggest, lots of Oregon fans will be in the building for that one. You got to expect it. Not exactly the best matchup for a higher seeded Arizona team, being that Arizona is the 4, Oregon would be the 5. And, you know, it kind of is a regional advantage for Oregon. But before I get your prediction on, you know, who would be a potential winner in that game. What do you see about the Oregon Ducks, and what kind of comes to the mind when you're looking at that squad?
Well, first thing that comes to mind when I say Oregon Ducks basketball is I think Dana Altman, very solid head basketball coach over there at that program, and he's going to have his boys ready to compete with any team that they face in this tournament. They rank top 50 nationally in offensive and defensive efficiency, as we can look right here at their stats preview. 24-9, 12-8 in conference, however. Not the year you wanted to see in that Big Ten conference for Oregon. They did rattle off 7 straight wins to finish in 8th in the Big Ten, so kind of saving their season in a way in those last 7 games. But like I noted, top 50, honestly top 40 in both offensive and defensive rating. Their tempo, 151st, and their strength of schedule, one of the strongest in the country at 20th, Damon Dog. So that's what sticks out to me about Oregon. Well-coached, solid basketball team. Nate Biddle down the middle. Hey, there you go. Nate Biddle down the middle doing his thing. Big man. What do you think about the Oregon Ducks? Because I have a lot to say about Liberty in this matchup.
Yes, you do. But looking at Oregon's schedule on the season, they lost 5 in a row at one point to Minnesota, UCLA, Nebraska, Michigan, and Michigan State. Then they reeled off that 7-game win streak that you aforementioned, Kevin. But on this win streak that they went on, not a lot of juggernaut squads that they beat on that little 7-game win streak.
Yeah.
As I look at these teams, they beat a Northwestern team by 6. They beat Rutgers, who wasn't very good. They beat Iowa, who had a rough season. Wisconsin in OT on the road, which is the best win of that stretch for sure. And Wisconsin, I think, a little bit of an up and down squad. We might touch on at the end of this video, Kevin. But then USC, Indiana, Washington. That seems like kind of the bottom feeders of the Big Ten for the most part.
Yeah.
How much stock can you put into Oregon? Was it a legit run, or did they kind of get lucky with the way that the schedule played out? I'll be honest. I don't think Oregon is a great team. I think Arizona is. As far as a 5 seed goes, I think this is one of the worst 5 seeds you could probably be matched up against, Kevin. I think that they're
worst in a good way though.
They are an over. This is the
beneficial
opposite of
Arizona.
A Houston 5 seed. The exact opposite. This is a team that was pretty middle of the pack in a lackluster Big Ten conference. Was streaky at times. I think their size component actually plays into Arizona's hands a little bit with the way that Arizona's a big team. They like to kind of overmatch teams with their size and with the ability to, kind of overpower people with Henri Veesaar and Tobe Awaka. I see that, the fact that they're not going to try to go small in Arizona. They're not going to try to go 5 wide and just shoot their way out of this thing. I think I would love to see Oregon in that second round, Kevin, because I think that, this is being their best player, being a big man, Arizona's ability to match up with those guys. I think Arizona would handle business versus an Oregon team. And as far as seeding goes, I know that there's somewhat of a rivalry aspect here to things, but I think that this is a good matchup for Arizona. What might be a bad matchup, Kevin, would be the Liberty Flames, the 12 seed, who would have to beat Oregon in order to get to that second round and play Arizona. If Arizona, God willing, beats Akron. Kevin, tell me why you like Liberty. What about this Liberty team scares you?
Yeah, Liberty can certainly beat Oregon. And what scares me most about if a potential Arizona-Liberty matchup were to ever come to fruition would be that Liberty does everything well that Arizona struggles to defend. They shoot the 3 at an incredibly high volume. They rank top 25 nationally in the rate of 3-point attempts. And you might think, well, they're just hucking up threes. No, they're making their threes. They're top 5 in 3-point shooting percent as well, hanging around that 40 mark as a team, which is incredible. Not only that, but they also lead I think they're second in the country in effective field goal percent as well. So not only do they take all the threes, make all the threes, they have an efficient offense. And when you look at their defense, they're one of the best teams in the country at stopping the perimeter shot as well. So and I feel like that's a recipe for March Madness upset run, right? If you're a team that can shoot the ball, stop the other opponents from making perimeter shots, slow the game down because their pace is not very high, right? Let's look at our Liberty team preview.
It's extremely low, actually.
Right here, 28-6, 13-5 in conference. Nothing too incredibly impressive, but 28 W's is not something to shake a stick at. You got the 80th best offensive rating, 48th best defensive rating, and then the tempo as well. Very, very low there, Damon Dog. The strength of schedule, obviously not the highest for Liberty either, but top half of the country. But I think this is actually a recipe for a team that could pull off some upsets in this tournament, Damon. Yeah. They can shoot the ball well. They can defend. They can slow the game down, kind of muck it up a little bit. I like Liberty in a matchup with Oregon. I'm actually picking Liberty in a matchup with Oregon. You heard it here first. So Arizona, I think, should handle Liberty in that matchup pretty handily. The quality of talent on both rosters, I think the cream is going to rise to the top in that matchup. It should. Like you said, if Arizona's a serious contender, they will handle a team like Liberty. But pump the brakes on being too confident if Arizona was to face Liberty, because they can shoot the lights out. And we know that teams that can shoot the lights out can give Arizona problems, Damon.
I think Liberty is a bad matchup for Oregon. I think Liberty is a bad matchup for Arizona as well. I mean, you noted it, Kevin. 5th in 3-point percentage in the country, 3rd in defensive 3-point percentage allowed.
Wow.
Top 5 in both is astonishing. That's clearly the way that they want to win. Is they look, their analytics tell them that stopping the 3 and scoring the 3 are the two things that, lead to W's. And I think when you get, as you said, Kevin, into the tournament, I think designated ways of playing basketball are oftentimes what lead to the biggest upsets, right? And Liberty is one of the shortest teams in the country. They are 347th out of 364 in height. They're one of the top 5 3-point shooting teams. I think they're just going to spread Oregon out. Kind of take Biddle out of the game a little bit, and start just shooting the lights out on them. And if the threes are dropping that day, I think they get the W. They'll try the exact same game plan against Arizona if they get there. And Arizona's just going to kind of have to overmatch them, I think, with athleticism and transition play.
Yes.
And get Liberty to play the way that Arizona wants to play, rather than, succumbing to the way that Liberty is going to want to play, because that's what we saw with a Princeton loss in the first round, right? That's what hurt Arizona is they started playing the way Princeton wanted to play, slowing down the game a little bit more. Half-court sets. If that's what happens, I think Liberty would be a big upset alert type of team for Arizona. Underrated aspect of this Liberty-Oregon matchup, Kevin, real quick. Fiesta Bowl from 2 seasons ago. Liberty fans in shambles, potentially having to watch Oregon, destroy all of their postseason hopes and dreams again. But yes, Kevin, assuming Arizona is able to get through this second round, they will likely play the Duke Blue Devils in the Sweet 16 here. And Arizona played Duke already this season. Didn't go well for Arizona. Kevin, what would you like to see in this matchup if it happened again? And how would you feel about Arizona's chances?
Look, this is actually going to be a rematch either way if Arizona was to get to this point in the tournament, because they have either Baylor or Duke, right? And I think Duke
or Mississippi State.
True, not to rule out Mississippi State, but you know what I mean. If the predominant favorites are to make it out of that portion of the bracket, you are facing a rematch, which we know Arizona does really well. When you get a second or third crack at a team, they do really well in those matchups. I think the Cooper Flagg aspect of this, I think we should lead with that. Duke representative saying that Cooper Flagg should be good to go for the tournament, but I couldn't really tell from what I was reading if that was mostly to provide some cushioning for the seeding, because they do take into account how healthy your team is when seeding your team. And because that was kind of what was being mentioned in that. So if Cooper Flagg is good to go, this matchup is drastically different than if Cooper Flagg is not playing in this game. If Cooper Flagg is not playing in this game, Arizona can beat Duke and make it look good. I'm not saying blow them out. That's not what I mean by that. But I'm saying Arizona can play a full 40-minute game against Duke and beat them for sure if they don't have Cooper Flagg. But if they do have Cooper Flagg, Damon, I think this game is one of the best games you'll see all tournament, in my opinion. I think that Arizona versus Duke could be very poetic for the Arizona Wildcats. It's going to be tough. Con Knipple can shoot the hell out of the ball, and that is something, again, we've spoken to it already in this video, can give Arizona problems. They kind of can lapse on defense at times, and that Duke is not a team that you can lapse on defense at any time against, right? We saw it as recently as Houston in the Big 12 tournament. Arizona failed to play a full 40-minute game without defensive lapses, and it cost them in that Houston game as well. So I'm worried about the Duke matchup. I really am. I think Arizona can beat Duke, but the Cooper Flagg element is the elephant in the room.
Yeah, it certainly is. Why don't we pull up what we have here on Duke and just kind of run through, the analytics darling, I would argue, of this season, Kevin.
Most
the analytics,
certainly.
I've loved them all year long. 31-3, 19-1 in that putrid ACC conference. 3rd ranked offensive rating, 4th ranked defensive rating, pretty damn good, top 5 in both. Not a very fast team, very middle of the pack towards the bottom of in terms of tempo, and then strength of schedule. Not very good, highlighted by being in the ACC conference. But here's the thing, Kevin, and we talked about this off air. They've played Auburn, they've played Arizona, they won both of those games. The teams that they have played, they've taken care of business against for the most part. Duke, a very, very good basketball team. Cooper Flagg should be back. I think if we're talking about from the Arizona's dream standpoint, Kevin, which is what this video is about, I think that Baylor does what they need to do, and they knock off Duke in the second round. Arizona, a team that they've already beaten twice, they match up with a third time against. Yep. They know Baylor. They know how they're going to play. I wasn't really too concerned about either of the Baylor matchups when they happened. I felt like Arizona controlled both of those games from start to finish for the most part. I think Baylor is that ideal scenario in the Sweet 16. More than likely, you're going to have to play Duke, though, and get your revenge for, what was one of the, only blowouts Arizona suffered this entire season, Kevin. Let's say Arizona, they beat Akron. Whoop, whoop. They beat Liberty/Oregon. Whoop, whoop. They go on to the Sweet 16 and they take down a Duke, right?
Whoop, whoop. Oh, yeah. Okay, what are we talking?
Now we're in the Elite Eight, right?
Yes.
Arizona has not been in the Elite Eight since, I believe, the 2015 season under Sean Miller.
Sheesh.
It's been far too long. You're in the Elite Eight. Let's look at some of the maybe more realistic matchups that could come out of that, Kevin. I think 3 that pop up are the 3 top seeds on that side of the bracket.
Let's talk about it.
It would be Alabama.
Yep.
It would be Wisconsin. It would be BYU.
Yep.
We've obviously seen BYU already, handled them the first game. They came back in the second game and won late, albeit, despite some pretty egregious officiating.
I'm looking at you, Tony Padilla. I'm looking right at you in the eyes.
Looking straight at you, Tony. But... also Arizona played Wisconsin. Yep. That also didn't go our way. And now it's going to start sounding like a broken record, but Wisconsin shot, like 400,000 free throws in that game. That was at Wisconsin. I think I'd love to see what that looks like on a neutral floor. Out of those 3 matchups, Kevin, who would you like to see the most potentially? Didn't talk about Alabama, but they're a scary team.
Man, who would I like to see the most?
Out of those 3.
Can I plead the 5th? Because those are all 3 very tough offensive teams to go up against if you're Arizona. We've already seen Tonje shoot the lights out against Arizona this season. I think he dropped 30-plus in that game. BYU's offense run by Kevin Young is a pro-style offense, and it looks like a pro-style offense with some college basketball players in it because they can shoot the lights out. Their screening activity is crazy, and they have defenses all types of dysfunctional when they go up against them. Yeah. But I think the team that maybe I'm not most excited to face, but the team that's most likely to face the Arizona Wildcats if they make that Elite Eight would be the Alabama Crimson Tide. And I think this game could be one of the most fun games of the tournament as well, just based on the stylistic matchups between the guards and how gritty these 2 teams are.
For sure.
But Alabama, 25-8, and we'll talk about the other teams as well. 13-5, 4th best offensive rating, Damon. That is really impressive. The SEC was on fire this year, whether you think it's the best or whatnot, it was on fire. 32nd best defensive rating, first in tempo. First in tempo, Damon, one of the fastest paced teams, the fastest paced team in the nation. And they have the toughest route to where they are today with the #1 strength of schedule in the country.
I'll tell you what, straight off the jump, not unrelated to Arizona, Kevin, but I want to see a BYU-Alabama Sweet 16 matchup because we might see an NCAA record for number of threes in one game broken between those 2 teams. That would be absolutely electric. I think Alabama's better than Arizona. I think that would be exactly the type of team you're talking about that would just overmatch an Arizona team. But I do think that would be an electric basketball game. That's a team that is just so good at shooting the basketball. I don't know if there is a path for this Arizona team with their poor shooting if they can get past Alabama. Defenses on similar levels. I just feel like Alabama's offense would push them over the top, but you never know. There could be a bad shooting night. BYU, we know what they're about. We don't need to go too much into their their team preview here, but definitely a team to watch out for. We were talking about it all in the lead up of this final portion of the season here, that BYU is a scary 6, 7, 8 seed for a team, and they kept winning, so they built their way up to a 6. I believe Arizona's. Here's where I'll end this video, Kevin. Just quick overview. I think this is Arizona's ideal path to the Final Four. For me.
Go for it.
Akron, Oregon, Baylor/Mississippi State, Wisconsin in the Elite Eight. And we're going semi-realistic, obviously. Like, VCU would be awesome to play in the Elite Eight, but I'm not exactly, counting my chickens.
What do you mean Robert Morris can't make it all the way to the Elite Eight? Yeah, what's wrong with you?
So that's where I'm at, Kevin. That's the path I would love to see play out for this Arizona team.
It's setting up to be a fun March Madness tournament for the Arizona Wildcats.
It certainly is, Kevin, and you know that we will have you covered all throughout the entire tournament with your absolute best, most encompassing Arizona Wildcats, Arizona athletics coverage the entire way. I am Damon Dog. That's DAWG. Follow me on Twitter. This is my guy Kevo Post, KEVOPOSTS. We will be breaking down the rest of the NCAA tournament as we go, Kevin, and bear down.
Go Cats!